How do you identify? Do you identify as a coach or a real estate agent? Do you identify as an accountant or a mom? Maybe an entrepreneur or business owner? I always think about, like, do people identify as content creators or they identify as business owners? Like business owners that create content or content creators that have businesses. Like, the identity that you carry, it really, really matters with how you act and how you take actions. And think about the different environments that you're in. So if you were to go to a networking event and you were to introduce yourself, you might identify first as blank. It could be a business owner. You might identify as an entrepreneur, a sales girl, someone who I would say I help women master the skill of selling. If you were to go to a PTA meeting or maybe your kid's school, you might first identify as a mom of two. That's the first thing you want someone to know about you. Or I know that we love to go to the University of Georgia football games, and when we meet people at games and we're sitting in the crowd, I notice that my husband will identify as a UGA graduate. Like, that's one of the first things that he'll say about himself. And it's really interesting because it's like your location determines the information that you give to portray a certain reputation. And that reputation is really important because the definition of reputation is beliefs or opinions that are generally held about someone or something. So when you offer certain information, depending on the location that you're in, you are helping people develop beliefs and opinions about you. And I know we all wear lots of hats. Like, you're probably listening to all these identities and you're like, yeah, I hold all of those identities. And I do too. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, I'm a friend, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. I'm all of those things. But I'm not all those things necessarily at once in every single moment. And I know that for me, like, I will do certain things to change out my identity before I walk into that certain location. One simple tool is I will actually change clothes before I go home to pick up my kids, because the clothing that I wear helps me lock into a different identity, which makes me act totally different. Like, I don't act like the mom that I am when I'm here filming a YouTube video. And I definitely don't, act like a YouTuber or film content. I don't put on that persona when I'm with my kids. And so really being aware of what arena you're in, this is so important, what path you're on, and putting on those different hats, literally putting on those different hats depending on who you're talking to and what you're trying to do really matters. So let me ask you this. When you are in a conversation with someone, trying to get them to become a client, okay? They aren't a client yet, but you're trying to get them to become a client. How do you identify? Does something come up in y'all's brains? Do you identify as a fitness coach, a nutritionist, a real estate agent? Do you identify as the professional that you are? You identify as a sales girl? Okay, what about you? You try to do, but in the past, maybe you've identified as like a real estate agent, right? And it makes sense because it's like, you want to be seen as a professional. So you're like, let me just be the professional, right? And I think a lot about this with like my friends and family. And I think most people think, okay, if I'm a professional, like, I should do things for my friends and family for free. Have y'all ever thought about that before? You're like, yeah, it's just like my gift to them. Like, they helped raise me and they're my blood. Of course I give it to them for free. And they are, in my opinion, the very people that you should not do it for free for, because when you do it for free, they still see you as who you are to them. So I was the youngest cousin. There was 5 cousins. I was the youngest one, and everyone called me Little Maymay. Little Maymay. There's Little Maymay, Little Maymay. Literally, I would sit on my cousin's lap and he would bounce me on his knee. Like, I was just the baby of the family. And still to this day, when I see them over the holidays, they will call me Little Maymay. And if they were to ever want to work with me, the most important people to pay me are those people, because they cannot see me as Little Maymay. They have to see me as a professional. And the only way that that identity changes in their eyes is when they pay me. Everything hinges on the moment that someone accepts your offer and pays for your offer, because in that moment, there is a flip of the switch where you become the professional. I know I have given the lowest level way to work with us is a $25,000 program. And I have given that program away for free to 2 people in my entire life. We've trained thousands of sales girls, and for free, a program with a value like of $25,000, which the payoff is exponentially more. And to this day, those two people are the only people who have never even opened the portal. They've never even logged in. They never even created a password for this program. And it's no one's fault but my own for giving them something for free, because that transaction didn't happen. And so they do not see me as a professional. They see me as a friend who did them a favor. If you love someone, you will take their money. That is so critical. So how do you really help someone see you as a professional, and how do you get to that step? Because you cannot be the professional until they pay you. So how do you, like, who is the identity that you carry? What is the identity that you carry before the professional? So let's say this is you, and this is the professional right here. This is where people pay you, they respect you, they look up to you. This is like what everybody wants right here, is to be this person. But you have to be this person before you can be this person. Being this identity, I'm going to make her with green hair. Being this identity is what allows you to be this person and for people to see you in this way with this reputation. And I know that you already know this is the identity of the sales girl. But what I want to do is I actually want to compare these two identities with additional identities that I think you will be familiar with, or you'll have a little bit more context for. Because I think a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? Like, how are those that different? How is it so different that the real estate agent and then the sales girl act differently? How is it so possible that the tax accountant and then the sales girl act differently? It's the same person, but like, how does that even make sense? It's a really good question. And so I want to put this in perspective of a teacher. Have you all ever had a teacher at school? Okay, a teacher. And then also a tour guide. Have y'all ever been on a tour? Yeah? You were a tour guide, okay? For your college? Okay, so she was a tour guide for her college. Perfect. So let's do like a little chart like this, and let's compare and contrast. So this is let's call them the professor, because we're going to think about college. Professor, and this is the tour guide. Okay. Both of them are under the umbrella of college, right? So you can think about this. These are both of your identities. The professor is also the professional. And then I want you to think about the tour guide as the sales girl. Under one umbrella, okay? So the first differentiator is the professor tells, and the tour guide shows. What is the professor telling? The professor is basically telling you concepts. They are telling you material, and they're teaching you dead things. Like, honestly, I want you to think about the periodic table. Like, honestly, how dead, how boring, what kind of snooze fest do we live in which we sit there for months to talk about the periodic table? They say sit down and listen. They tell, okay? But tour guides, they show, okay? They demonstrate. They take you on a tour to show you a future that is possible for you. They are able to bring dead things to life. So they tell you about dead things. They take dead things and they bring them to life. So I went to the University of Georgia, and there's like this, it's an arch. How would I describe it though? It is just basically not a statue, but it is a fixture of an arch, okay? That's all it is. And it just looks beautiful. But when a graduate of the University of Georgia tells you about the arch, they tell you all this meaning around this arch. And there's this joke that if you walk underneath the arch before you get your degree, you'll never be able to have children. I don't even know where that came from, to be honest. But if you go to the University of Georgia and you see a crowd of people will literally be waiting in line to be able to walk around the arch in these tiny little ways on either side of the arch so that they don't walk under it. There's all this meaning it's brought to life, and people love it so much. And they have arches like everywhere in their house, and they have pictures of it, and it means so much because the tour guide made it mean something. Okay, so that's the first differentiator. Number two, professors, They deliver info. Tour guides deliver an experience. I know when I went to school in college, I felt like my teachers would spend the first week telling me about the syllabus. Did y'all experience that? Syllabus, the whole week, to tell me their agenda. This is the agenda that I have for you. This is the agenda, this is the path that I am telling you to go on kind of by yourself. They create the container in which you go on that path, but they're like, hey, this is your job to go through this material and I'm going to test you on it, okay? But tour guides, they deliver an experience. What kind of experience? It depends. It totally depends who's in the room. They are willing to adjust and think on their feet depending who's in the room. They're able to read the room. So I want you to think about a tour guide right here. Here's a tour guide. And they have someone who is interested in being a nurse. They have someone who is interested in being a swimmer. They have someone who loves to exercise, right? And they have someone who loves to make friends, and they're coming from a totally different state and they don't know anybody, okay? With this particular group, this tour guide is going to make very specific stops for each one of these people. Maybe this person is going to go to this tour guide is going to take everyone to go to the workout facility so that they can paint the vision of how they're going to have a future and enjoy continuing their habits at this college, okay? This one is going to take them to the Greek village, or, the street, ours was called Millage, the street of Millage, all the sorority houses, and paint pictures of the sorority that they could be a part of, or the fraternity that they could be a part of. They adjust their tour based who is in the room. Now, I just did a challenge recently, and we actually did a challenge is basically kind of a week-long challenge in which people come and they learn how to sell their offer. And the first part of the challenge every single day is people come and they get coaching. And one of the things that we actually did in this past challenge was we did some role play, which was super fun. We do role play in our programs. I've never done it on a challenge before. And it's kind of hard to coach role play without someone being in our program because they don't know our framework. So it's hard to coach someone on a framework that they don't really know yet. But it was so interesting to watch this one couple, these two people, role play. The person who was the sales girl, she was selling the mom on creating a resume for her son that was 21 years old. Are y'all following here? And literally, she asked, hey, tell me how old your son is and kind of what he does. She said he's 21 years old and he just went to school, he just graduated, and he really wants to create an amazing life. And the sales girl, she went straight into trying to deliver information. She went straight into, oh, okay, perfect. Well, I create resumes for college students and I help them become someone that can really stand out on a piece of paper. And I help them show what are the things that are most important to show on a resume. She immediately delivered information and I stopped her. I said, whoa. Let's read who's in the room first. As in, what are all the things that she cares about? What are all the things that she would say about her son? What is it that her son even does? What did he graduate with? What is the future that he wants? We don't even know. But we have to be willing to get the information to read the room so that we can deliver a very specific experience for the person that you are talking to. Now, why is this actually way harder than delivering information? Because the tour guide has to be able to think on their feet. They have to know the map. Like, imagine a tour guide walking like this, looking at the map, taking everybody to where they need to go and making sure he's not lost. It'd be so boring. It wouldn't be an experience for anyone. Tour guides can walk backwards. They can talk to somebody in a conversation and show them something totally different. And this is why having software, we call it sales girl software, the selling software in your mind, ingrained in your mind, is so critical because that is the only thing that allows you to deliver an experience. If this is making sense, say yes. Yes. Okay, cool. The professor knows the product knowledge, right? They know the periodic table, baby. Don't worry about them knowing the periodic table. They know it, okay? But the tour guide, they know people and they know payoff knowledge. So what is payoff knowledge? Payoff knowledge is basically, what is the evidence that I can find that proves and supports that their payoff is valuable and would be worth it. So a lot of you know your payoff very well. In fact, when I ask someone what is the payoff, it's very quick for someone to say, you're going to make more money, you're going to be thinner, you're going to lose weight, your clothes are going to fit you better, you're going to have a better relationship with your husband, your skin's going to be smooth. You have all this payoff, payoff, payoff. You could talk about it all day long. But the actual evidence to support why that payoff is worth it is lacking. And so I want to give you a quick example of some payoff knowledge that I've really been searching. So one of the things that I am creating is something called high converting fashion. And it's basically how to dress yourself in a way that helps people want to buy from you even more. I mean, listen, you're going to wear clothes anyway. Why not use them to your advantage? And you would think that a lot of the offer that I'm creating is a lot about clothing. And it really is. It's a lot about principles. I don't love talking about anything that could not be timeless. So I don't talk about style necessarily, like specific things that are in style, quote unquote, but I do talk about principles. But most of my work within this offer is actually selling people on why this matters in the offer. Because the last thing that I want is for someone to buy something and then think that it's not that important when I know it is really important. So I'll give you like a little piece of evidence it's called evidence that proves why this payoff is so valuable. And I have it written down right here. It is about this guy. His name is Edward Higgins, and he discovered something called the self-discrepancy theory. And all this means is that it is a discrepancy between who you are and how you dress. And it can range in a result of terrible side effects, like lower self-esteem and lack of pride. So for example, let's say you really evolve as a person, like Julia, Jenny, you guys feel like you've evolved, right? Yeah. You feel very different, you feel very changed, especially going through Sales Mastery Boot Camp and you like know how to sell. And you know, in life we all evolve, right? We're never the same person. And so a lot of times what happens is we evolve on the inside, but our surroundings have not evolved on the outside. And so we walk into our closet, we walk into our homes, we walk into our relationships, and we're like, wait a minute, I feel different on the inside, but my outside looks the same. And you start to feel frustrated. Y'all feel frustrated sometimes? I know, like, I have a desire to renovate our kitchen. And we've renovated our basement. We've renovated the back area. The idea of turning our lives upside down to renovate the kitchen feels very daunting for me. But I have insane self-discrepancy when I'm in my kitchen cooking. I'm like, this kitchen does not reflect who I am. I feel so frustrated by it. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I know for me, I close my kitchen cabinets and they're loud when I close them. It sends me. It absolutely sends me. And I know it's almost, it almost doesn't make sense why it sends me so much. Like I really have to manage my thoughts about it. But when I read about this, I was like, that's what it is. And so when you are able to evolve your style, when you're able to really dress appropriately, I'm not saying go buy new stuff, but like really thoughtfully think about how you present yourself, your outside will reflect how you feel on the inside. And even more importantly, your outside, when you communicate with people, it will match the experience that they have with you. How terrible would it be that someone experiences you and they experience one thing, but the way you look doesn't really match? Like, what if you were a dentist that had really bad breath? It's like, wait a minute, I thought that this is like what you do. You're confused, right? You're like, I don't even trust you. What's going on? Same with your clothing. Like, what if someone experiences a very polished version of you when they talk to you, but your style doesn't really reflect that? And then they're like, wait a minute, why doesn't the outside reflect the inside? What's going on here? And then suddenly they feel confused, they don't trust you, and they don't buy from you. That's pretty terrible, right? So notice how I just had some knowledge. I developed some payoff knowledge about why dressing a way intentionally really matters. I didn't tell you how to dress. I didn't tell you about the color theory. I didn't tell you about specific styles. I didn't tell you about brands. I didn't tell you about the product knowledge. I gave you the payoff knowledge, but do you feel more of a desire to care about how you dress after hearing that? Do you guys care a little bit more?
Yeah. I'm like, what am I going to do?
You're like, what am I going to do about it, right? So a teacher, like a professor and a professional, like I'm not a stylist, right? I'm not a professional stylist, but I don't need to be a professional stylist to make you want to do it. Do you see how these are two completely different roles? And if I were a professional stylist, personally, I wouldn't even open my mouth about anything about styling specifically until someone crossed over this line and paid me. Once they pay me, then I'll go into this, but I have to make them want it first. Not just to pay for it, but to actually go through with it and to actually do what I tell them to do. I mean, if you hate having clients come in and then not actually do what you tell them to do, this might be the problem more than this. That's why you have to have both. Cool? Does that make sense? Okay. Speaking of dressing, professors, they dress the same way every day. Y'all know what I'm saying? They literally, from my experience, they come to class looking the exact same. The exact same. But tour guides, oops, this should be 3, 4, 4. Tour guides are dressed in a way that command authority, okay? But it's not just, like raging authority. Like you could think about a suit makes you come off authoritative. But that wouldn't make sense if you were a tour guide for a raft, like a river raft, and you wore a suit. That wouldn't make sense. So they're dressed with authority, but they're dressed appropriately for the occasion, right? They come into a arena, they come into a location. Remember I gave examples earlier in this video, a PTA meeting, a networking event, in the at a UGA, football game. They're going to different arenas, but they're dressed appropriately for that arena, but they are clearly the one in charge. And you can do this too, right? So you have all these identities, but I want you to really think about going into arenas and being like, okay, I'm going to dress appropriately for the arena, but I'm going to clearly be the one that has that in charge energy. I know for me, I really think, like when I walk into a room or a virtual room or an event, I think, okay, I'm responsible for the energy in this room. I just want to carry that responsibility. I want to set the tone. I want to be the mood meter. And truthfully, a tour guide, their personality and their in-charge energy makes or breaks the tour. Can I get an amen? Yeah. Like the guide is the one that makes people feel emotion and makes people want to be there, not the tour itself. And honestly, dressing in a way not only projects that to other people, but you experience something called enclosed cognition, and you actually act differently based on how you're dressed. So it's very, very important to really think about that. You can tell where my brain is at right now. Okay, I got a couple more. Y'all ready? No, the professor, number 5. Professors make people think. Tour guides make people feel. I remember when I was first going to college, I thought I wanted to be something called a child life specialist. And when I went to go with the tour guide, quote unquote, the tour guide of my version of a child life specialist was actually to go to a hospital and shadow the child life specialist. Now, a child life specialist is someone that communicates to the child when they are going through some sort of sickness and they have to go through treatment. So the child life specialist communicates to the doctor, and then the child life specialist takes what the doctor said and says it to the child. And it just seemed like such an amazing career. It was very hard to get. They only would take like 3 or 4 people like in the year. And I went and shadowed this woman, and she had, the day that I went to the hospital with her, it was just the best day. She delivered all good news to all the children, delivered all good news to all the families. All the kids were running up to her. Every time she walked by someone, everyone was like, "Good morning, Julie." They just said her name, and she was so bright, and she had the pink scrubs, and she had the long ponytail. There was something about her that I was like, I want to be her. She made me feel. She helped me see a potential future. She made me feel a type of way that made me think, I want to be that. She is someone that I could become. This is possible for me. Are you doing that when you're communicating with people? Like, really think about this. Do you help offer someone their future more than you're offering your offer? And when I decided I wanted to be a child life specialist, I started to go into that arena, and I started to go to class. Now, turns out when you are going to go into a medical field of any capacity, you have to take medical classes. I just wanted to hang out with kids, okay? But what I found is that I actually had to take biology, I had to take chemistry, I had to take all the things and basically have the knowledge of a doctor so that I could communicate to a child. When I sat down for that first biology class, I sat front row. I about fell asleep. And it felt so hard. And I felt like it was impossible for me. Like, thinking slows you down. thinking makes you question if it's possible for you. Even thinking if it's too easy. Like I actually have a sister-in-law right now. She's 21 years old. She was going to be a pharmacist, and she's very smart. Clearly not like my blood family. She's book smart. And she went into all these pharmacist classes, and she started to think as she looked around and said, I think I'm like smarter than these people. Like this is actually easier than I thought that it was going to be. I actually want to be a doctor to challenge myself more. So it's both. Like you could offer something that's too quote unquote easy and people think, I already can do this. This isn't for me. Or you could offer something that's too quote unquote hard and it slows people down and they think, this isn't for me. Like this is way too challenging. So I quit and being a child life specialist and went a totally different route. But when you make people think at all, it slows them down. Logic makes you lethargic. Emotion keeps you in motion. And I especially notice this with people in health offers is they're offering stuff that seems intuitive, right? Like just eat broccoli, just eat less, just move more, lift heavy weights, drink more water. You think it should just be second nature and natural and that they should understand it. That's why you cannot make people think. This is why you cannot teach in a sales environment. You have to make people feel like it is a brand new opportunity, something they've never seen before, and it is so possible and different, but possible for them to experience a life of freedom when it comes to food in their body. And then I have one more for you. The professor is not a representation of who someone could become. And a tour guide is. I'm going to put representation. So I went, like I said, to the University of Georgia, and there was something called orientation leaders. And there was 12 a year, 12 orientation leaders a year. And these people were the celebrities of the University of Georgia, okay? They were the pinnacle of all things being smart, being well-liked, being involved, having a lot of friends, being in a Greek life, being in clubs, being a tutor, being invited to everything. They were the front and center of like all the promotion of just like random things. And they were the people that everyone wanted to be like. They were the ones who had the secrets. They were the ones who said, hey, I know that you think you should take this bus, but you should really take this bus. Or, hey, I know that you think that you should live in Creswell, but it's really not that good. It's actually very old. You should live here. They had all these secrets. Everyone wanted to become like them. Teachers, on the other hand, you were going to learn how to be a doctor so that you didn't have to be a teacher. They weren't a representation of who you could become. Now, the reason why this is so important is that tour guides have a little bit of scars and they have a little bit of history and they have a story. They have roots, they have substance within them. And sometimes I notice when people have this kind of professional professor mindset is they are so obsessed with teaching the material, they forget to reveal the substances within them that proves that they have the credibility to teach the material. And some people, I notice, they actually don't have that much substance, but they're trying to make up in substance with words that they lack. So they make up with words that they lack in substance. So they try to overtalk. They try to overstate. They try to prove something that just isn't true because they don't have the roots. So I cannot recommend enough, like really making sure that you are going to experience a lot of different experiences to have the substances. So for example, we had a student that came to New York and she does color analysis. And she said that, she was just in the airport. She landed in New York. She was grabbing a coffee and someone came up to her and they were like, a random stranger. They were like, hey, you are glowing. There's something about you that just looks so different. I was so drawn to you. Just the way that you look and the way that you carry yourself is just amazing. Do you realize how that is a story of a tour guide, of a sales girl? That is a story that she can tell to prove her point of why the colors that you wear are so important. And I was like, hey, that was worth your trip to New York. Just to go, to get out of your house, to experience other people, and to be able to have a story like that to tell as you are guiding people. Let me ask you this. Do you see how the role of a tour guide could guide someone into literally spending $250,000 for a piece of paper? Do you see how a teacher would not do that? Do you see how a tour guide makes people feel and believe and see that it is possible for them? And people talk about the tour guide, but they don't talk about the teacher. And every day, your role in life is this 90% of the time. You never cross over into this professional professor mentality until they pay you. And as the sales girl with the sales girl hat on, what I want you to think about is like, how can I deliver an experience and guide people on a tour of my beliefs in my extraordinary world? How can I show that my extraordinary world is possible for other people? I'll tell you one more quick story. I posted a TikTok, a silly little TikTok about how I went to go get my nails done in the middle of the workday. And what I was telling people is, hey, make an appointment so that you can know it's going to take you an hour and you don't have to sit there waiting, wondering when you're going to get out of there. It was just a very innocent TikTok, but there was a comment on that TikTok that said, I would never use my PTO to get my nails done during the day. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my gosh, I live in a world in which this is normal. I live in a world in which it's normal to get your nails done in the middle of the day. That is an extraordinary world and a tour that I could take people on to show that that is possible for them. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that you really embody the sales girl tour guide identity, and don't be coming over to this professor identity until people pay you, so that they can fully pay attention and experience a full payoff.